Hi everyone. Well, the current series of Inside Number 9 has now come to an end, leaving me with no new episodes to review. However, I wanted to make one last video in order to round off Series 6 while we all patiently wait for Series 7, which is due to begin filming in August. And here's hoping we can get another 2 seasons after that, which would just be the perfect number. Now, I mentioned that I wanted to do a kind of series highlights video, and some of you suggested that I do this in the form of an award ceremony. So that's what we're doing today. We've got 9 categories, and of course I haven't taken any liberties in order to land on that particular number, perish the thought. And because so many of you have asked, I'll also be revealing my favourite episode of Series 6. I don't know if any of you have already guessed it from my reviews. So without further ado, here are my completely pointless awards for Series 6 of Inside Number 9, which I will read in no particular order. I'm assuming you already watched the episodes, but just in case, expect to hear spoilers for basically everything. Starting off, we'll be looking at the best 9, and by that I mean the location, premise and creative use of the number itself. We've had a few interesting ones this series, such as the warehouse in Wuthering Heist, which allowed for that fantastic montage sequence. We also had the caravan in Hurry Up and Wait, which brought all of the characters uncomfortably close together, as caravans tend to do. It might even be the best use of this setting since Father Ted, which also featured the one and only Pauline McLynn. One creative use of the number 9 concept was the hotel room in Lip Service, which gave us an extra 9 when you added up all the numbers, prompting many of us to look for other hidden 9s throughout the series. Maybe they're just coincidences, but they're still a lot of fun to spot. This episode also let us in on the action at number 9 across the road, through that incredibly clever phone call sequence which still blows my mind every time I see it. But for me, the winner is Simon Says for its use of the fictional TV series The Ninth Circle, which everyone is inside of in one way or another. We have Spencer, who is essentially trapped within his own creation, Simon, who's trying to force his way in by any means necessary, and Gavin, who's been writing fanfiction in order to keep the series alive. We have a set packed with props from the show, characters who are completely consumed by its world, and trophies that turn out to be more than decorative. It's funny because the Ninth Circle also made me think of Dante's Ninth Circle of Hell, which, when you think about it, kinda connects this episode with How Do You Plead. That's another story about a person who does terrible things for the sake of fame and fortune, and the 2 episodes even use the same set redressed. How about that? I know I'm going off at a bit of a tangent here, but still, I thought that taking the fictional universe that spawned a fandom and making that the number 9 was a brilliant move, and so it gets my award. Not that the episode actually wins anything, and I wouldn't trust those characters with a trophy anyway. Next up is Best Soundtrack, which gives us some time to talk about the amazing work done by Christian Henson. And what a tough choice this is. Everything is brilliant, from the funk-infused soundtrack of Wuthering Heist to the simple trumpet fanfare of Last Night at the Proms. And there's a lot to love in between. Hurry Up and Wait certainly had variety with its creepy old music boxes and ITV drama series pastiche. Lip Service builds on a gentle piano melody that evolves to match the mood at any given moment, and Simon Says gives us the story from Simon's point of view as a fantasy epic filled with love, passion and betrayal until it finally goes dead quiet. But my personal favourite this year was the hauntingly beautiful score to How Do You Plead. This soundtrack helped to evoke the complex emotions of traumatic memories, the sins of the past coming back to haunt the characters, and of course our antagonist, the devil himself. It's not exactly the first time the violin has been associated with Old Scratch, and that instrument just sent chills down my spine every single time it played. For me, it was just so powerful, I had to give it the top spot. If you want to hear more about the composition work for this series of Inside Number 9, then you're in luck because Christian Henson has made an entire video on the subject over on his channel, which I can't recommend highly enough. The longer Number 9 goes on, the more I think this composer can do no wrong. Next up, we have Best Guest Actor, i.e. the best performance from anyone whose name isn't Steve Pemberton or Reece Shearsmith. And once again, this was a very tough call. I don't think Number 9 has ever hired a bad actor, and this series of course was no exception. If I had to narrow it down, my honourable mentions would probably go to Gemma Whelan as Columbina, Adrian Dunbar as himself, and the legend that is Derek Jacobi returning to Number 9 as Mr. Webster. Once again, those scenes between him and Reece Shearsmith were solid gold, and I'm so glad they managed to get him for the production, especially under quarantine. But my number one spot has to go to Sian Clifford for her role in Lip Service. She just shone as Iris. Whether she was being awkwardly charming, trying to dispassionately translate one half of a phone conversation we never saw, and even at the end when her real agenda is abruptly revealed. That comes straight after a very sweet scene between her and Steve Pemberton, and while I said I wasn't completely convinced by the sudden romance the first time I watched it, that had nothing to do with their performances, which were absolutely spot on. Iris was a great character, Sian Clifford was a brilliant casting choice, and she really made the part her own. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a Pemberton-Shearsmith venture if we didn't celebrate the best killings. This time, we got some really nasty ones, with the throat slitting in episode 1, the headshot in episode 3, and the over-enthusiastic Jesus stabbing in episode 6. But our winner this time marks a very special occasion, as we finally saw Reece Shearsmith being murdered by Steve Pemberton. I told you Steve would have his revenge. The whole scene plays out in an intensely creepy way, with Simon's mock seduction of Spencer and the romantic fantasy music playing before it cuts to dead silence. Then we watch Steve smothering Reece with a pillow for what feels like a very long time. But as I said in my review, it's much closer to reality than we usually get with on-screen suffocations. Maybe a little too close, because Steve very nearly did smother Reece during filming, according to their podcast, when he accidentally managed to cover his mouth and nose. So, bonus points for realism. Moving on, we're looking at more or less the exact opposite with the award for Best Kiss. Well, we have to lighten the mood now and again, don't we? We don't have that many examples, despite a very fleeting romantic moment in Lip Service, and at least 2 characters feeling up Jesus in Last Night at the Proms. But who am I kidding? This is only here so we can mention Scaramouche and Mario's kiss in Wuthering Heist. The way Dean O'Kelly played it with full conviction is just joyful, and the fact he has to pick up Reece due to the extreme height difference was just the icing on the cake. I completely bought that Mario was ready and willing to do the fandango. Now for the series' most disturbing moment, because, you know me, I live for this shit. In fact, I've already made 2 whole videos of disturbing number 9 moments, and I reckon some of these would have made the cut if they'd been broadcast earlier. Maybe I'll revise that list one day, who knows. First, we had that chilling "you're with me now" moment to the audience from Patterson Joseph in Wuthering Heist. Then we had that infamous murder seduction scene in Simon Says, followed straight up with another murder. We also had Bev's creepy take on the Cabbage Patch Kids in Hurry Up and Wait, when we realised she'd been cuddling the remains of an actual dead baby. Either that or she just liked holding on to her spare Halloween decorations all year long. Yeah, that cheap looking prop kinda ruined it for me too. But instead, the award goes to How Do You Plead for Vomiting Carol and the Tangerine of Doom. First it's seeded, no pun intended, with a really haunting monologue from Reece Shearsmith, which was partially based on a real-life experience. There's clearly a lot of trauma to this story, no doubt made worse by the indifference of the school staff. The idea that the smell of the tangerine also triggers this horrible memory makes the ordeal feel incredibly visceral. So, when the door is opened at night and the random tangerine is just sitting in the middle of the floor, you know something awful is about to happen. Cue the image of a choking schoolboy as he advances on our main character and vomits what is no doubt a foul concoction of bile and citrus all over him. And sure, it's just a memory coming to life in a dream, but once we know the real reason why he's being haunted and the true guilt behind this manifestation, it's just all the more powerful. The scene was vile, terrifying, and I loved it. Now on to Best Hare, which we can take in 2 different ways. So let's start with the Best Hare. We saw a very clever use of the inside number 9 hare statue in Lip Service, which, as many of my eagle-eyed viewers pointed out, was printed on the shampoo bottle. Hey, if the hare pun is good enough for them, then it's good enough for me. But my favourite hare was the one in Simon Says, for having its very own little face mask. To me, this is a monument to the success of this series despite it being filmed under the restrictions caused by the global pandemic. And I have to say, it turned out incredibly well in spite of it all. Hell, if anything, this has only made them more creative in their approach to making minimalist TV, with the show feeling even more intimate and claustrophobic than ever before. and the mask on the hare is a playful little reminder of that. And naturally, best hare goes to Steve Pemberton for his marker mode updo. I mean, that's just uncanny, isn't it? I was half expecting him to go off on a rant about Exorcist 2. And now we have the awards for the best Steve performance and the best Reese performance. Starting with Steve, I honestly couldn't decide between Felix from Lip Service and Stan from Hurry Up and Wait, two very different characters that prove, as if we didn't know already, what a fantastic and versatile actor he really is. So I'm just going to cop out and call it a draw. Special mention goes to his performance as the devil in How Do You Plead, which is now officially one of my favourite screen versions of Satan. And I just realised that he went from Stan to Satan in one episode. For the best Reese, we had some strong contenders in Creepy Simon and any of the characters who used a ridiculous European accent. Take your pick. But the one that really stood out for me was his performance as Urban Bedford in How Do You Plead. This was a very complex, very secretive character, and if you've not rewatched this one already, then I strongly advise you to do so. The fact that his performance is on a par with Derek Jacobi is in itself praise indeed. And that Carol Jackson Tangerine monologue was a series highlight for me. Now we come to a category I had to include, which is character who got the worst deal in the entire series, because this is number 9 and bad things often happen to good people. I've got to say that Columbina got it pretty bad in Wuthering Heist, and seeing Arlo trying to get her back up again is quite heartbreaking. Having said that, she was an undercover cop, so she must have been somewhat aware of the risk. Yusef/Jesus didn't fare so well in Last Night at the Proms either, but what do you expect from a Jesus story? Maybe just check him again in 3 days' time. James got a raw deal too in Hurry Up and Wait after Adrian Dunbar hoovered up all his lines, but that's nothing compared to what Baby Ryan got, although all of that happened off screen and in the past, so I'm not sure that counts. And so my character who got the worst deal in Series 6 award goes to Gavin from Simon Says. Now, maybe that's just my own bias showing, but bless him. All he ever wanted to do was write about a show he loved and maybe get a few autographs for all his trouble. His only crime was helping his friend with a slightly mad plan, but I'd wager that Simon probably made it seem quite convincing. Plus, Gavin must have been a really talented writer, as the contents of his book were strong enough to resurrect a dead series. In the end, he gets his ideas stolen, he's presumably bludgeoned to death with a statue and thrown in the River Thames, and he gets no recognition or credit whatsoever. At least Simon got to do a few podcasts. And just for this series, I'm giving a bonus award for the best doggo. So, well done Willow, who played the unfortunately named Boris in Last Night at the Proms. Good boy, or indeed, good girl. I'm not sure either way, but it's nice to see that they got their own credit. And so with the awards over and done, it's time for me to talk about my favourite episode. And because so many of you seem to enjoy rankings, for once I've decided to do just that. Please bear in mind, these are just my personal opinions, so feel free to disagree. Okay, here we go. In at number 6 is Last Night at the Proms. Not terrible, but not really one of my favourites. I just don't think it came together all that well, and the whole Jesus thing didn't really do anything for me. Nice dog though. At number 5 is Hurry Up and Wait, featuring Adrian Dunbar and the Dead Baby Caravan. And while that could have been an interesting twist, it just left me with more questions than answers. Some good performances, but I felt that it could have been more powerful with a few revisions, and maybe with a better Dead Baby reveal. At number 4 is Wuthering Heist, which I found absolutely hysterical and great fun overall. I love all that cheesy, over-the-top humour, and I'll never hear the phrase CCTV again without hearing Scaramouche. Mixing Commedia dell'arte with a heist movie feels like something only Steve and Reese would ever think of doing, even if it is the kind of thing a drama teacher would have a wank to. I might have even ranked this episode higher if the competition had not been so damn good this year. At number 3 is Lip Service, which again I'd probably rank higher in a different series. Excellent turns from both Sian Clifford and Steve Pemberton, razor sharp plotting throughout, and a great example of what number 9 can do with very little. We even got a few laughs along the way before Steve took a bullet to the brain. Great twists and turns, wouldn't change a thing, I loved it. At number 2, and this is where it gets very interesting and very close indeed, I'm going to give it to Simon Says. I absolutely loved this episode. It was tense, it was dark, and I really loved the way it explored the sometimes awkward relationship between creators and fandoms. And they did this in a really well balanced way, I thought, with the very creepy and intense Simon, the somewhat pretentious and aloof Spencer, and of course poor old Gavin, who voices the more positive aspects of fan communities and the genuine passion some of us can feel for works of fiction. I think that in less capable hands, the characters might have come across as hollow caricatures, but I really think they nailed it here. And yes, this was indeed very close to my heart as a member of the number 9 fan community, and I couldn't help but feel a bit seen. Guys, don't ever let me be like Simon. And so my number 1 spot goes to episode 5, How Do You Plead? I think this is the greatest horror episode they've ever done, and if you know me, you know that I love horror. The setup is great, the acting is sublime, and the music, oh my god, the music. I'm not sure I mentioned it in my review, but I should also point out that the direction in the episode is some of the best I've seen, especially in that moment of the twist reveal, which is just so powerful. And yet, the fact that Satan is just there the whole time, lurking away in a lift, is a brilliant touch. To think that I actually thought I might feel disappointed with this episode if it didn't somehow call back to the Devil of Christmas, which I was just begging them to do. But I very quickly forgot that notion as the episode started, and I immediately felt engaged with the main characters and their lives. The only improvement I can possibly think of is if the episode was allowed to be a bit longer, because honestly, I could have watched this play out for as long as they'd wanted. How Do You Plead is now officially one of my favourite number 9s, and definitely my favourite horror episode. So there you go. As I said before, these are my opinions, so it's fine if you disagree, and you can feel free to plead the case for your own favourite episode down in the comments. So now that Series 6 is over and done with, what else are we supposed to do with our time? To help with this, and also to round off the video, I thought I'd mention a few other things I've been watching lately. I don't know if that's of interest to anyone, but anyway. So I finally did what many of you were virtually screaming at me to do, and got round to watching Fleabag. Actually, I ended up binging the whole thing in one sitting. I thought it had some excellent dark humour, sharp writing, complex characters, and a fantastic performance from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Fleabag also has an incredible supporting cast, including Sian Clifford, who I was raving about earlier. And there's a guinea pig. Don't know if that matters to anyone else, but that's always a bonus for me. The last movie I watched was a film called Prevenge, which was written and directed by Alice Lowe, who also played the lead character. Well, one of them if we're going to count the murder baby. Because yes, that is the premise of the film, a pregnant woman turned serial killer while being egged on by the voice of her unborn child. It's about as black a comedy as you're going to get. Some of you might remember Alice Lowe from Inside Number 9, or from Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which I'd also highly recommend. Prevenge is currently available to watch on Shudder, and if you enjoyed Gemma Whelan in Wuthering Heist, then you'll probably enjoy seeing her in this as well. Over on Netflix, if you enjoy the minimalism, depth and variety of Inside Number 9, then you could do worse than Bo Burnham's Inside. Well, it's packaged as a comedy special, and it does feature some funny and quirky songs about social media and internet culture. It also explores themes of isolation, the relationships between performers and the audience, and the struggle to maintain a creative output while the world falls apart. There were parts of this special that really spoke to me, and I'm not sure I was really prepared for that when I first watched it, so I'm giving you all the heads up. But maybe highly detailed murder-themed podcasts are more your thing, in which case you might want to check out Into the Killing and the YouTube channel Criminally Listed. Put it this way, if David Sourbuts from Psychoville made a podcast, then it might go something a bit like this. Not gonna lie, the guy's voice and delivery might take a little bit of getting used to, but if you're a morbid little bastard like me who loves a good deep dive into true crime and cold cases, then this is something you might appreciate. For web series, I've been watching Hug the Sun, which takes the form of a lost 90s children's television show created by the members of a sun-worshipping religious cult. There's some tones of Wonder Chosen and Don't Hug Me I'm Scared in there, if that's the kind of thing you're into. Plus the series features some of the crew from Anti-Donna, and if you haven't seen that, then that's a good one to jump into with zero context. It's, strange. But yeah, check out Hug the Sun, Praise Oxtos, and Beware the Shadow Man. For book recommendations, I just finished reading The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which was a unique and engrossing psychological horror story. It's been adapted for screen multiple times, including the recent Netflix series, which updated the story and completely reimagined the characters. So it was interesting to read the book afterwards and see where those ideas came from. Definitely worth picking up if you're looking for a good novel. And finally, if, like myself, you enjoy watching shit films for fun, then I can strongly recommend Tammy and the T-Rex, or Tanny and the T-Rex, whatever Tanny is supposed to be short for. The fact that they can't even get the name right gives you a good idea of the quality of this movie. The premise is, get this, the main character's boyfriend gets his brain transplanted into the body of a robot Tyrannosaurus, and hijinks naturally ensue. This was recommended to me by some friends of mine who are also shit film aficionados, and let me tell you, this one did not disappoint. It was shot in the 90s, but looks like it was made in the 80s, the effects are terrible, and the acting and script are both utterly atrocious. If you enjoy watching shit films with friends and having a laugh, then this is definitely worth your time. And that's it from me. Hope you have a good day, please remember to like and subscribe if that's what you want to do, and feel free to hit me with your own recommendations, especially now when I'm looking for more stuff to talk about. Thanks for listening as always, stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye!